Welcome to the seventh time we're doing this
I
now.
think so, yeah.
Wonderful. 70 is a lucky number. Welcome to ChatGBD. And as always, co-host is...
Maor Wurmbrand.
All
Eric of
right.
Growth here in Anzu.
Here we go. And my name is Guy. I'm the EVP of Supply and Revenue Operation at Anzu. We are now going to dive a bit. We're a week away, or 2 weeks? Is it 2 weeks away from GDC?
Yes.
So really all eyes are on that. Pretty crazy. We're looking at sort of the shifts in the market. Super interesting with, I know a lot of indie developers, a lot of developers are not managing to raise funding as much as they used to. So how would that affect GDC, do you think? You think the vibe would be high, low? What are you expecting?
It's a excellent question. I've been searching for, setting meetings over there. And I think every second person who's, attending is either an indie developer or a publishing house. And they're both in the end looking for the same thing. And those are the main, type of audience. This is the type of audience that will attend. It's my first time in GDC. I'm not sure if this is the
GDC version.
yes, the GDC version. So I'm not sure if this is the norm there, but these are most of the people are, either the developers.
Well, everybody is going to be there in terms of investors, LPs of investors. You have publishers, obviously, and developers. You have advertising agencies and companies. Everybody that has even a remote interest in games will be that week in San Francisco. So, just super interesting. Obviously, a lot of people are there to find their next publishing agreement and or funding for the game that they're working on. Some publishers are looking for press, are looking for bigger exposure. And obviously, every tech and service provider on the planet is going to be there, and included, to show, the value we can bring to certain publishers, to certain studios and developers. And you'll spend most of the week at PG Connect, right?
A mixture of PG Connect and GDC.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll see. By the time this, session will go live, probably this would be post GDC. But we'll see. If you happen to hear us before, reach out. If you happen to hear us after, we'll have a session only about GDC, post GDC. After that, I think you're taking a much needed vacation for a week. Well done. Where are you going to be?
New York for a week. It's going to be very...
We'll make sure you'll have few meetings there as well.
Good week, good weather.
I think after the first few sessions that we've done, we want to sort of dive deeper into some KPIs, into how things work, go from high level into specifics. We'll also start interviewing people from the industry. So this is really exciting.
Yeah.
It's a good start. I want to go a bit deeper into the how money is being generated, right? Everybody says, and everybody knows, okay, you just put an ad, it's seamless in the game, it's on a billboard next to a racing track, maybe it's being sort of dragged by a balloon over the sky. It sounds easy. How, from that situation where I'm playing a game and in the background there's sort of a billboard there, how does that translate to actual money? Can you take us through the business flow?
Yep. We covered on previous episodes how Anzu is generating revenues overall, how Anzu is sourcing revenues. From publisher perspective, I'm gonna talk through, let's think about the basics. Publisher, when their publisher is getting a new user, we covered this also on other episodes, they're looking to make money overall, how they're gonna make money from a specific user. Some publishers will have a lot of IP in a purchases focus. Some of them will have heavy ads focus and a mixture. It all comes down to the key metric called ARPDAU, average revenue per daily active user. This is a metric that is common across the industry. It's a metric that everyone is looking at. Some companies are looking at it more aggressively. Some are looking at other metrics. But essentially, this is a metric that publishers and ad providers agree as an indicator of success.
It's revenue per user, and the revenue can come from any number of sources. Purchases, watching or viewing ads, and anything in between.
Yep. So a specific user will be labeled with a specific ARPDAU. So let's say, for example, a publisher is making, I don't know, $0.50 a day from a given user. This $0.50 can be incorporated from 30 cents from purchases, could be 20 cents from ads, or any other combination. And this is how they evaluate the profitability of this user against the cost it cost them to acquire this user.
But most players are not actually paying or buying purchases.
Correct.
I understand sort of the market is about 2%.
2%. Everyone are seeing ads. If you're not seeing ads, probably you won't be able. If a publisher is not using ads aggressively, it will be very difficult for them to make the user to be profitable.
Right. So unless you're paying for the game, and I'm looking beyond mobile.
Correct. Yeah.
And if you as a player are not purchasing anything inside the game, the only revenue you are generating for the game and allowing the developer to actually create more content is by seeing ads.
Correct. And on publishers, they're gonna have a blend of ads on mobile in particular, interstitial, rewarded, banners, obviously intrinsic, native, offer walls, and publisher is deciding what will be the right blend for them, how aggressive they want to be, how many rewarded ads they want a particular user to see, and obviously how many impressions they will see through Anzu's intrinsic solution.
So if I'm a player, I didn't need to pay for my mobile game, or there was a free-to-play game on my console. I downloaded the game. I'm not that 1% that's gonna buy anything in the game, not a weapon, not a shield, not a hit. So I'm just, and I'm seeing these ads. I'm seeing these interstitial. I see these native intrinsic ads. Just by watching them, how watching the ad generates revenue. What's sort of there's a magic there.
Yeah. So among other things we're doing here, we're developing best practices for publishers how to utilize and the solution, where to put the placements, how many placement needs to be used, and this is the craft of what we do, and how publishers are advancing their show of wallet with show of voice or voice with Anzo solution. Essentially, in the end, it's an impression game. The more impressions you will be generated, obviously it depends on the CPM, and the more revenues you're going to make from those impressions.
So break down what impression actually means.
Great. Amazing question. So an impression, Anzu is, as if anyone is here listening for the first time, Anzu is measuring an impression on a 3D environment, meaning that we are looking very heavily on the location, time on screen. There is some stuff around the angle that is related to the camera within the game. We're taking those elements and combining them and determine if this particular ad that was displayed is eligible for a billable impression.
So if I'm seeing a logo of a brand that was delivered by Anzu, is that counted immediately as an impression of that brand, or seeing the logo doesn't mean necessarily that this is an impression or what's called a billable impression sometimes.
It
It
really
doesn't generate revenue.
it really depends on the implementation and where the placement is located. Essentially, if the placement is very visible, we have some KPIs according to the IAB. Placement needs to be at least 1.5% of the screen. The ad needs to be seen, at least 50% of the ad needs to be seen for minimum 1 consecutive second. And we talked about the angle of camera angle of the game against the placement below 55 degrees. Once we complete those 4 elements, we're able to generate a billable impression. So combination of all is what allow publisher to generate impressions. Now, if placements are located in a very good position, very good location, sorry, it will be very easy to meet those criterias and, let the placement rotate, drive new impressions, and continue with the flow.
So there's a junction somewhere in the game where a lot of players go.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, hey, I'll put on the heel a billboard that would show ads.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody will see it, but maybe it won't generate an impression, a billable impression, because it will be too small, because there are standards where there needs to be some kind of quality measurement, let's call it, certain KPIs that need to be there in order for that billboard to actually generate revenue.
Correct.
So, in mapping them out, it needs to be at a certain size, right?
Certain size,
certain angle. We talked about angle.
Minimum time on screen.
All right. So it can just be the in and out.
Correct. And we have minimum amount of the ad needs to be displayed.
Right. So if I have the billboard, but there's a lot of track moving in front of it, and it's not being seen,
I won't be able. I might be able to generate an impression, but it will take me longer.
Right.
Because there are obstacles potentially that are sitting between the camera within, let's say, on Unity engine and the object which holds the placement itself.
Have you seen developers that integrated these Anzu ads, these billboards, but they were not generating actual impressions? Did it happen?
At the beginning, it happened. It happens at the beginning when we're first integrating. And this is, where the magic happens when we are working very closely with the developers, giving them the tips on what to do. It could be something technical, something minor that, with a click of a button, we're enabling them to unleash the potential of the placement even before going live in production to the stores.
So you can actually optimize. You put a billboard, but you can actually optimize the output, the effectiveness of that billboard in terms of generating impressions.
Yes. So we offer 2 ways to tackle this before going live and after going live. Before going live, we have a viewability score measurement within our plugin on Unity, Unreal, and the other game engines, where developers and ad monetization can actually see. We have statistics that measures impression in real time. There is this bar that is getting green once an impression is being generated. That's number 1. Number 2, we have then our analytics dashboard when you can view all the metrics and understand on the placement level if all those criteria are able to generate impression, yes or no. And if
so, I can understand as a developer, I can understand even before the game is out if the ad would generate impressions.
Yes.
Is it big enough? Is the right angle? Is it covered or not covered enough? Basically, just look at all these parameters that you talked about and understand if it's going to be effective. And even after, I can make it even more effective.
And as always, the team at Anzu is eager to help and support and provide tips. But essentially, we have all the tools and the tech to allow the publishers, the developers to do this on their own.
Now, every game is different. Ads are different. I know that there are different sizes and ratios of ads. How does that play into making these ads more effective?
I think the simple rule here, the bigger the better. But also, we cater towards standard IAB sizes. So essentially, brands would be interested to buy um, more in the horizontal, vertical type of ads versus the standard banner.
This is more ratios than sizes, I guess.
Correct. Yeah.
Because of the 3D environment.
Correct. On the developer side, we talk aspect ratio. So we're taking, the banners, we define it as, let's say, 6.4 aspect ratio. Just simple calculation. Standard banner is 320 over 50 divided.
This is a good old web.
Yep.
Going back to the good old.
And I think also on the previous episodes, we talked a bit about how we're translating the web ecosystem, basically what brands are looking at, typically on web and CTV, and how we can translate it and what we do to translate it into the in-app gaming space. The viability scores is part of it.
So Anzu is taking the same banner that somebody is creating for the web and sort of stretches it into the billboard. Does it look good? I mean,
It looks amazing. It looks.
What's the magic there? How do you set up a certain billboard? Some are long, some are short, some are high, vertical, horizontal. How do we do the magic of taking something that's very 2D and set for a website and put it into a 3D environment that's dynamic, that, camera is moving, things are moving there?
I think that's the beauty of our SDK at serving the capabilities. We're able to receive through bid responses and, through our managed services, we're able to take classic ads, 480 over 320, 320 over 480, etc., and look at those, measure it in real time, pixels amount, the aspect ratio, as we mentioned, for example, 480 over 320, aspect ratio 1.5. And we're looking at those and able to basically in real time match it within the placement aspect ratio without harming the quality of the ad.
So we have different ad placement, different Anzu ad placement, different ratios, and we have a pool of these assets, banners from different campaigns.
Or videos, by the way.
And videos, and we'll talk about videos because they are more valuable, right? And we can in real time adapt them into sort of a game media and put them in the right billboard that is or able to contain the right ratios.
Correct. So, for example, if we're going to have a placement that is able to generate only, let's say, banners, 320 over 50, we won't be able to put in, a 480 over 320.
Right.
Like aspect ratio 1.5.
You're not going to take horizontal banner, stretch it into a vertical.
We do have an internal tool, we call it the shrink to fit, where we are enabling developers to basically have a single placement that is, we guide them how to do it, but essentially this placement is able to resize based on the coming ad that is going into that placement. So on a given placement, obviously where everything is being resized, it looks good. We have tons of best practices and examples of how to do it well, but this would be a good solution for developers who wants to enjoy from the whole world. Like with a single placement, have all the ads that are coming in from direct campaigns, programmatic exchanges, have everything flow and enjoy the benefits of all sizes and not be limited only for, vertical ads.
So we got on one hand a pile of banners, maybe videos as well from a lot of campaigns. We got the Anzu Magic Box. On the other hand, we got those ad units, those billboards, different ratios, different sizes within the game in a lot of games, right?
Yep.
And we make sure that these ad units are seen, they're big enough, they're on screen enough, they're not tilted too much, and impressions are being generated. We deliver these banners in.
Yep.
Players, as they play, they see these billboards and banners in the background, and actual billable impressions are generated. And here you go, you got a 1 million impressions. How does that translate to money? What do you do with these 1 million impressions?
So all comes down to how much we're paying against those, how much we're getting, how much we're paying against those impression. Each, typically, we're working based on a CPM basis,
CPM?
cost per million, how much you're willing to pay for 1,000 impressions.
1,000 impressions.
And against that, we're paying X amount of dollars to the developer. And for a million, you can make the calculation. I don't know, half a dollar. You can make the calculation how much revenue you're gonna make for a given amount of impressions. Obviously, based on um, geographic. If it's sometimes we see on HD, we get higher CPM compared to mobile, but it really depends on. It's a campaign to campaign basis. The territory impacts a lot, I would say. Tier one obviously will always have a higher CPM, higher paying cost against, I don't know, tier three. But it's not something that is unique to us. It's like, I would say it's an ecosystem thing. Tier one will always have a higher CPMs.
So CPMs is the sort of the unit pricing unit that we're working with. We gather all these impressions into 1,000, and then the industry knows how to buy them.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that money goes to the publisher. Big part of that money goes to the publisher because they own the media.
Yeah.
Um, Agencies, brands are happy to pay that price because they know what they're getting, and they know that that impression is actually a valid impression.
And
their logo was screen, big on screen. It was enough time on screen. But, as a publisher, I want more, right? How can I do more? Obviously, without harming the user experience. I don't want anybody to say, this is too much. I want players to stay in my game, but I do want to maximize the billboard that I just created. What are the, 2, 3 ways that I can maximize the effectiveness, the revenue output from that banner? Is it something that I can sort of switch a lot? You talked about videos. Give me some ideas.
yeah, so Andrew, we talked about it briefly. Andrew support both display and video ads. Again, against all the demand sources type of campaigns we're running. So best thing, make sure that majority of all placements supports both. Now, some placements will be more will fit more towards video. For example, the banners won't necessarily be a good fit. That's something that we see a major interest for brands and demand partners overall, versus more horizontal placements that are, accessible typically for demand partners. This is the size they want to purchase.
More big ratios that are more similar to TV or even
Yeah.
to movie theaters.
Yeah. So that's number one. Make sure that you have um, um, diverse ad sizes
Mm-hmm.
and supporting both display and video.
All right. What about frequency of showing ad? I mean, ads can rotate. We see that in real world where in our out of home,
Yeah.
um, ad units, but I want to say billboards. Um, we don't just see one ad. Long gone are the days where you printed and you glued some kind of ad on a billboard and then you replace it once a week, maybe.
Yeah. So I think what we do here is, I would say, a bit different from the classic, rewarded setup,
Right.
let's say. Because our ads in the end are a placement, sorry, are acting in a way like another game object within a game. Think about, I don't know, when you have a soccer game, you're gonna produce, your design team will produce amazing stadium, crazy outfits. The placements are acting in the end as another layer within the environment, which essentially generate revenues. Our best advice, and this is, as another KPI, making sure that all users that are not only opening the game, but also actually playing the game will be exposed almost at any given moment to at least one placement.
Mm.
Because the ads are not interfering and they're naturally blended within the game. Kind of when you're thinking about, I don't know, walking on Times Square, this is a very radical example. Ads are all over, but they don't interfere you
Well,
don't
this is part of the scenery there. I gotta say that people go there to see ads.
exactly. But in the end, you're gonna see I don't know, an insurance ad over there. All right, you saw that, and then you went to the local Starbucks or something. Same logic here. I mean, we don't talk about necessarily about the frequency, but more about giving the developers the idea of make sure that the ads are seen, and on every level, every stadium, every area within the gameplay. Obviously, every game has its own unique mechanics. Some audiences within certain games will tell you, listen, this is too much. Some audiences will not even notice, which is the sweet spot. And so what works for one game maybe won't work.
They'll notice enough to remember the brand, hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I want to say that there's sort of a flipped side to that, because as a developer, as a publisher, I'm looking at these ads. I'm saying, how can they be more effective? But how they can be more effective in generating more revenues to me? The advertiser is always also looking at the effectiveness of these ads, but they're using different metrics, which we'll cover some other time. But
We
can you
can
give me
talk
some
very
high level about that?
viewability. We talk this a lot. Viewability.
What does that mean in layman terms?
I would say if a particular ad is being seen, I mean, the IAB is looking. I've touched this, to our viewability tool. IAB defines certain criteria for an impression on a 3D environment. We talked about the angle, the size, the time. The combination of all of those is what the brand on the other side is looking when they are purchasing impressions on a 3D environment. So they are looking for the ads to be as long as possible on screen. They want,
And the reason is that they want their brand to be remembered.
correct. If this placement will have an ad and you will see it for half a second and then you moved on,
Right.
it won't be as effective from um, how the user is actually recognizing the brand.
And there's also an element of frequency, because if I'll see the ad for, maybe a second, but I'll see that 5 times, 6 times in a session, there is a higher likelihood of me remembering the brand.
And then, do whatever afterwards. If it's
Go to the store, go online, purchase, whatever.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what the brands are looking at in the end. They want to purchase impressions. Some of them actually would tell us, listen, I just want to get massive reach. I want to get everything you have. The majority, though, do look.
But this is very, very simple kind of way. It's an advertiser's, a brand, an agency would come back to us if we can show them through their tools how effective this was. Like, people remembered the brand, people have created some kind of an action, whether it's in the real world or online, and showed an intent or purchase.
Or actual, either like you said, intent, but also sometimes we have the ability to actually show that we contributed to massive attribution.
Attribute between viewing the ad, the campaign, and actually making the purchase.
Yes. And this is the crazy sweet spot where on the publisher side, the user didn't have to leave the game, essentially, and visit another website, another app or something. And the brand on the other side, they made money through investing in an intrinsic campaign.
Return on advertising spend, ROAS. ROAS. So I think, we'll spend about half an hour just talking about that sometime in the near future.
Yep.
But to summarize, from a publisher and the developer point of view, it's not just throwing in billboards. I can be more effective and I can optimize over time.
Yep.
The billboards need to cover as many ratios as I can. They need to be on screen, not too far away because they need to be in a certain size, but they don't need to be in, in the player's face. If they can support running videos and support having those frequency dynamic changes of ad, I can generate more revenues. Um, and there's a balance there, not only on the user experience, how many ads, but there's the mix of ratios, sizes, angles, depending on your game genre, how your camera moves, how people are playing your game.
Correct. And another point is making sure that all majority of your players are actually being exposed to the placement. We call this exposure rate.
Awesome. So Ananzu can help me with guidelines, and there's a team here that you actually built from the ground up, route to help publishers really maximize the opportunity.
Yep. There's also, like, to cover this, in the end, essentially comes down to how many impressions a user can see.
Right.
And obviously, we don't want to bombard users, but we do see major differences when cases where publishers, game developers are, a bit concerned, which is legit. They're not putting a lot of ads. They're being extra cautious, delivering low amount of impressions. Obviously, it results with lower revenues. But when publishers understand that the placement doesn't harm, it's complement the game, the more impressions per user, more dollars will float in, coming down to the beginning of the conversation, ARPDAU. Then the bottom line, how much revenue you're going to make per user on a daily basis.
Sounds good. And we deliver all the dashboards and reports to
Creating dashboards, very user-friendly.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Moore. It's been
pleasure.
Insightful and inspiring. And we'll catch up soon on the advertiser's perspective. Until then, if you follow us, please subscribe. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify. I hope to see you at GDC and other events. And check out our
self-service program. Download, sign up, integrate, start making money very quickly.
The link will be in the description wherever you catch up with this podcast. See you next time. Thank you.